If you're looking to buy an SUV, the first question you should ask is why? Do you need a vehicle to run the kids around town to get them to school? Do you move lots of big stuff? Are you serious about going off-roading? Well, if you answered yes to all of those questions, then the Ford Everest might be for you. The Everest is a mid-size SUV based on the Ford Ranger pickup. It was actually developed by Ford Australia, but it's built in Thailand because we don't do that whole car building thing anymore. It's currently in its 6th year of production in this form and has just undergone its 3rd facelift, keeping it looking fresh on the outside, a little bit like some of the shoppers you see in certain parts of the eastern suburbs. Ford have got a brand new Everest on the way for 2022, so they've put together this very attractive Basecamp edition to save you several $1,000s in the process and help them shift stocks of the current model. The black alloys are part of the Basecamp package on this car, along with the tow bar, snorkel, roof racks, awning, nudge bar and LED driving light. Well, this is far from the cleanest engine bay I've seen on a new car. Obviously somebody had fun with this Everest before I got to it. Under the hood is a 5-cylinder 3.2 litre diesel engine which outputs 143 kilowatts of power and 470 newton metres of torque. Brake towing capacity is a very usable 3.1 tonnes. At the back behind what is one of the slower powered opening tailgates in the business is a reasonably small 249 litre boot when you have all 3 rows of seating up. Lower the 3rd row and that expands to 876 litres, and lower the 2nd row and you get nearly 1800 litres of space. While the Everest is still a really good looking SUV on the outside, on the inside it's a different story. There's a faint whiff of Ford Falcon Taxi circa 2005 in here, with all of this grey up on top of the dash and silver coloured plastic. It all just feels a bit old. Having said that though, it's a really well equipped car, especially from a technological point of view. It's just the execution that lets it down a little. Starting with the centre console screen, this is just not one of the better ones on the market. It's a bit too small. Ford's Sync 3 system is just not really all that good. It does have native navigation and digital radio, plus wired Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, but overall the system I've found to be a little bit glitchy and at times unresponsive, and pairing your phone to it is just frankly a lot harder than it should be. Moving down the console, and we've got a CD player, which is great because I brought along one of my favourite CDs to play in it. But there's this big slab of black plastic here for the climate controls, and there's no dials to operate it with. The 2 big dials here are actually for the sound system to tune and change volume. So you've got to go hunting for buttons to change the temperature, the fan speed, that kind of thing, and it's just not really all that attractive. Then we've got the lower console, which gives us yet more black plastic, a couple of USB inputs, drive mode controls, and a nice deep center bin, which is actually a really good size. Then we've got the instrument cluster, which is hybrid analog digital, and again, it's just not really quite up to speed with what other car makers are doing at the moment. There's a big analog dial in the middle there for the speedo and 2 smaller configurable screens on either side, which are just a bit too small. It's a bit hard to work your way around them when you're on the road. The steering wheel also looks like it came out of an old Ford Falcon Taxi, with arrow buttons on the top here which basically control whatever is on the screens on the instrument cluster. Beneath that, sound system controls and adaptive cruise control controls. Now don't let my criticism of this car get in the way of the fact that it's actually incredibly well equipped. In fact, I've got a list here. There's adaptive cruise control, autonomous emergency braking with pedestrian detection, front and rear parking sensors, lane keeping aid, traffic sign recognition and terrain management system. Alright, back seat of the Everest. Not quite as much room as I perhaps expected. I'm 190 centimetres tall and I'm behind my own seating position. My knees are firmly into the back of the seat in front of me, but there is plenty of headroom and the seats are actually really comfortable. They actually feel softer than they do in the front. In terms of amenities, we've got a fan back here. I'm not actually sure where the air outlets are for that, but they can't be far away. Up on top, that'll be it. 12-volt outlet here, and a proper power point, a 3-pin power point, so you could actually plug in just about any electric device you wanted, which is handy when you're going camping with a car like this. Got an armrest here with a very cool cup holder, nice mechanical feel to it. So all up, pretty good. Oh, and I just found the lumbar support for the driver. It's over here on the left-hand side. I missed it before. So there is lumbar support, but there's no rear USB ports, and that's a big cross. Good amount of pickup from the lights there. The 3.2 litre 5-cylinder engine doesn't feel underpowered. There is a 2 litre twin turbo also available, but I'd be pretty happy with just this regular unit. I think it's pretty good. There is a lot of understeer in this, and that's pretty typical for proper four-wheel drives. I remember that when I reviewed the Mitsubishi Pajero Sport last year. You've got to do a lot of work to make these things turn, especially in a car park. It's a good workout for your arms. On the freeway, it feels pretty good. It is a very high position up here. I think this is actually one of the highest four-wheel drives I've driven. It almost feels like we're flying here. It's kind of odd. It doesn't feel like I'm driving. Whilst it handles the bumps in the roads really well, you do get that wallowy kind of four-wheel drive type feeling, because at the end of the day, this is actually a truck. It's not really designed for city streets so much. It's more engineered towards going off-road, and I don't mean just a dirt track. I mean like climbing over rocks. So if you're not actually doing that with this car, then, you know, why are you buying it? You're probably better off with a more comfortable city-style suburban SUV like a CX-9 or something like that. This car is a 7-seater, so it actually does have plenty of room to carry a large number of people around. I didn't actually try to get into the back seat, the third row this time, just because experience has taught me that that's a hiding to nowhere. I'm not going to fit, all right? It's for kids. But there are 2 leather seats back there and a couple of cup holders. So I was watching a YouTube video the other day, and of course YouTube is the repository of all good information. It was all about Highway 1 in Australia, which apparently is the longest continuous stretch of highway in the world, something like 14,000 kilometres, and it circumnavigates the entire country. In fact, it actually, it doesn't start because it's a loop, but it actually almost does go past my front door. So I was thinking, well, you know, if I was to drive around Australia, I think the Ford Everest could be a good car to do it in. It's solid, dependable, comfortable. It can handle anything that we threw at it. I think I'd do it. Speed bumps? What speed bumps? Just go right over the top of them. So, parking the Everest does take a little bit of arm work, because you got to kind of spin, turn again, and then you kind of bounce around a little bit because of the suspension. It's not what it does best. The Ford Everest Basecamp starts at $64,690, and that's a good $6,000 or $7,000 off the price it would normally cost to spec up an Everest in this way. So it's really, really good value. And if you've got a big family to move around and, you know, lots of stuff you've got to shift around town, and you're doing the shopping and you're actually serious about going off-roading a few times a year, then the Everest could definitely be an SUV you'd want to consider.